Robinson Preserve, located in northwest Bradenton at the mouth of the Manatee River, is locally renowned as one of the #1 places to visit in Manatee County. This 682-acre nature preserve includes a variety of coastal habitats that support rare plants and animals. Careful observers may witness roseate spoonbills, white pelicans, and bald eagles. But Robinson Preserve has not always been the way it is today. We met with Charlie Hunsicker, director of the Manatee County Parks and Natural Resources Department, to learn about the history of this preserve, named after the Robinson family.
The Robinson family has a deep history of sports here in Manatee County. Robbie's Sporting Goods was a Robinson company. It was merged with Champs later on, and now Fit to Run. But the Robinson family also had a broad range and reach into landscaping and farming. The Robinson family had acquired 640 acres on the lower end of Tampa Bay on the Manatee River with the intention of having a development here. With that application for development, there were many environmental stipulations that came out of the review process. And they were extensive to protect the environmental sensitivities of the 640 acres here that they owned. The development partner that they had at the time decided that with those restrictions in place, it was not going to be profitable to continue to work to realize the development plan of over 440 condominium and single-family residential units. And so the family approached the Department of Environmental Protection with Florida and asked how some of the environmental restrictions could be eased if they changed their development plan. And it was at that time officials with the Department of Environmental Protection contacted us here in Manatee County to see whether or not Manatee County would consider being the development partner. In fact, be the person that took the natural environment, some of the disturbed areas that had been disturbed by farming, and restore them to the bountiful natural communities that now exist here at Robinson Preserve. We took up that challenge and made applications with the state of Florida, Florida Communities Trust, and received a grant of $6 million to help us towards our goal of acquisition and restoration. So with that $6 million, we were able to raise another $4 million with what was called at the time an environmental millage assessment on the property taxes, giving us roughly $10 to $11 million to work from. The Robinson family had their own appraisal of value of the property at $17 million. But through negotiations with the family, we settled on a purchase price of roughly $10.5 million, with the family being able to take a deep discount for estate purposes, a charitable donation of the difference. And for that reason, and their agreement to partner with the county with a discounted price, we did agree to name the property in their family name, and thus establish their legacy as contributing and playing a part in preserving what is now an environmental jewel here at Robinson Preserve.
Historically, much of the area within Robinson Preserve was agricultural. Crops such as gladiolas, tomatoes, and citrus were grown here. We asked Charlie to describe what the property looked like when Manatee County acquired it, and to describe the Parks and Natural Resources Department's vision for restoration.
When we were first approached by the Robinson family to acquire the property, we did our initial assessments and surveys ourselves. It had been prepared pretty much for a development footprint, in that much of the traditional uplands had already been cleared of nuisance vegetation. I think the Robinsons themselves had spent over $1 million removing Australian pine from the property to prepare it for development. But there were also a lot of agricultural controls that had been in place for almost 100 years on this property to make sure that salt water did not flow from the Gulf out over into the farm fields. A great system of dikes and ditches surrounded the property. And on top of those dikes, nuisance invasives like Australian pine, carrotwood, and Brazilian pepper had grown because it was now high ground above a mangrove forest like we're seeing here. So our desire was to restore tidal flow over the land that had been interrupted by the agricultural dikes and ditching that had occurred in the decades prior. Our desire also was to make sure that in building such environments, we enabled people, our residents and our visitors, to experience those very environments with pathways, boardwalks, interpretive signage, and be witness to the slow but steady restoration that Mother Nature was going to be able to provide. And then once that restoration had matured and given us what we have today in many parts of Robinson Preserve, the ability to continue to enjoy the location by getting out into the water with kayaks, non-motorized craft, being able to walk, bike, take your dog or your own self for bird watching and plant identification and all the other things that go with South Florida's environment. We rarely have a chance to take a special place like this and return it to what it was. I think we've been able to do that. We're standing on a boardwalk here that was actually laid atop of one of the mosquito control ditches that had been tunneled through this mangrove forest in the 50s in order to bring mosquito-eating fish in. The scars left behind for that, well, we put a boardwalk on top of it. And now you're standing in the middle of a mangrove forest that, heaven help you, try to walk in from any other way. But you're here now at this location, and you'll be able to hear the wind through the trees, the birds, all those visions that here in Northwest Bradenton, surrounded by over 100,000 people within 5 miles of here. And for just a moment, you can enjoy the solitude and the peace that this property brings. That was our desire in building a healthy environment and bringing people here to know what it's really like. In constructing Robinson Preserve, we've also included some very unique features. First of all, a 50-foot observation tower that can give you a broad view of all of Lower Tampa Bay, out to Anna Maria Island, all the way past our Skyway Bridge to St. Petersburg, and looking around you, a 360-degree view of what Robinson is in all of its 600 plus acres. In addition, we've been able to bring in a rubberized running track for hiking, walking, and exercise that is placed in our expansion area with great elevation change, as much as 30 feet from lowest to highest places along that trail, which is kind of unique on a flat Florida coastal zone environment. And the environments we've constructed here, while many of them are at sea level or just slightly above, those will transition and change over time as sea level rises. We'll see over decades truly what the effects of sea level rise on our coast all throughout Southwest Florida and here, and how Mother Nature will adapt to that as plant communities that are specialized in certain water elevations change as water elevation changes. But in other locations of Robinson Preserve, we've created enough elevation with excavation and mounding of dirt that for 100 years or more, this place will be a place where someone can come and still see many of the changes, many of the natural environments, and still enjoy the recreation. Also here at Robinson Preserve, because it's surrounded by over 100,000 people within a short 5-mile drive, we've created an environmental education center that is unique in this nation. We've also created a tree canopy playground, which is probably now become one of the most popular playgrounds in Manatee County. And a wonderful experience for exercise and energy and, I would say, enlightenment about how beautiful this property has become.
Robinson Preserve is open every day from sunrise to sunset. For more information, please visit mymanatee.org/parks or check out Manatee County Parks and Natural Resources on Facebook.